All right, let's dive in today to talk about one of my favorite topics in jewelry, and that is pricing. So, I have often listed in my bio that I've been dubbed the pricing queen by clients. And that is because people have been coming to me for years with questions about how do I price this and how do I price that and what formula do I use and how do I calculate for this and how do I account for labor and how do I account for all of my overhead. And all of these are tremendous, great questions for you to get started with. And I always want you to get started with the numbers because numbers are the foundation of how you build your financial projections and, of course, how you build a pricing strategy. But here's the thing, a formula is not the same thing as a pricing strategy. So, when I work with a client on a pricing strategy, we are often talking about things that feel like they don't necessarily have anything to do with how you calculate a price, right? Emphasis on the word calculate. Because a pricing strategy has so much more to say about your business as a whole. So somebody asked me to review a spreadsheet to ensure that their pricing is correct. Well, a spreadsheet like a formula is not the same as a pricing strategy. So I'm likely going to have even more questions for them in order to build a pricing strategy that feels like it fits their business. And so one of the more foundational questions that I might ask of any jewelry designer is, what are your business goals? And I know this can feel like one of those big nebulous questions like, oh, what are your goals? And it is a big nebulous question, but it is one that deserves an answer because to answer this question means that you're going to be one step closer to developing that pricing strategy that's going to meet the right customers for you. And that's going to help you build and grow your business and grow your profit. And then we might move on to another question like, what are your plans to meet those goals? Now, if you're sitting here thinking to yourself, well, I have so many goals in my business, that is great. I'm glad because it means that you have a vision for your business. It means that you're thinking through the future. So if we wanted to narrow this down, I might ask it as a more eponymous question like, what is your 2-year plan for your business? Or what is your 5-year plan for your business? And where do you see yourself in 5 years? If I want to use a question that you might get asked in an interview. But it's an important question to think through because where you see yourself in a few years in your business could be similar to a question like, where do you see yourself fitting in within the jewelry industry? Or within your craft industry? Where do you fit? And the other way of asking this question is, what is your positioning? And I might also be asking, as part of a pricing strategy, how do you feel about that current positioning? So when we're talking about positioning can be things like, what kind of style do you fit into? Are you more fluid? Are you more organic? Do you fit in with a more casual lifestyle? Is it more fine jewelry that fits in with a more formal lifestyle? Like, what kind of lifestyle do you think your jewelry fits into? What kind of materials are you using? Are you considered more demi-fine, where you're using more gold vermeil or gold fill, or more fine jewelry, where you're using more solid gold and platinum? Those have different pricing strategies because they have different positioning and different places where they fit in within the jewelry industry. So somebody who is selling, say, platinum engagement rings using 1 carat or higher diamonds might actually have a very different pricing strategy and even a different pricing formula than someone who is making gold fill earrings, hundreds a week. That is a very different kind of pricing formula. That's a very different pricing strategy. That is a different position in the industry. And that is different goals for an individual's business. They might not share the same goal. And you know what? That's actually okay. There's lots of room in the jewelry industry to grow and expand no matter what materials you're using, no matter what positioning you have. But defining that and ensuring that you're okay with that definition of where you fit in the industry is going to be key to developing any pricing strategy. And again, all of this goes beyond a formula or a spreadsheet. Now, this isn't to say that I never preach formulas or spreadsheets. I literally teach a formula. I'll even drop a link to the course where I teach it in the comments here. But it's not just about a formula. You absolutely need to know your numbers because you need to know, first of all, is your current pricing formula profitable? And if that needs to change, what other parts of your business might also have to change if you change up that formula? If your current formula isn't allowing you to profit at wholesale, but you have a goal of getting into 10 stores this year, what's going to have to change about your pricing formula that would also wind up informing your pricing strategy? And what does this say about your positioning in the industry? All of these things are inextricably entwined, right? They all belong together and they all belong as part of the same conversation about how you will build a pricing strategy. Other things that we consider when building a pricing strategy. So, yes, materials matter, your position in the industry matters, but also where do you like to sell and how do you like to sell? Do you like to sell one-to-one and making custom work? Do you like to sell in person at a big craft show? Are you planning on doing your first trade show and try to sell B2B or try to sell wholesale? Are you open to selling on consignment? All of these things are actually going to factor in. It used to be that most jewelry designers of multiple different genres and materials would start off selling wholesale and then eventually go direct to consumer. Or there were the more artisan jewelers who were doing multiple craft shows a year and selling just direct to consumer in person a lot. Those are different strategies that might actually come with different pricing formulas, depending on where somebody sees themselves, depending on where someone wants to take their business, right? So if you just sold at craft shows over and over and over, you might have a very simplified formula, but that formula might not allow you the space to grow and sell through galleries or to sell at wholesale through gift stores or retail stores. And if that is part of the ultimate goal of your business, if you're currently selling at craft shows and you really want to break into the wholesale market, we are probably going to have to revise a lot of your strategy. Some of that might also come with revelations about what your current branding is or what your current messaging is. How do you currently speak about your jewelry? Is your pricing comparable to jewelry designers who are selling in the same store? Or are you coming in too low or too high? Those are all factors that get built into a pricing strategy so that you can lead your business with more confidence, knowing where you fit in and that you are charging the best price that you can. Other ideas that factor into a pricing strategy: growth. If your pricing strategy as it is right now is for a certain kind of clientele, like maybe you're doing mostly custom, but you want to create production work so that you can grow your business. If you're currently mostly selling at wholesale, but you really want to break into direct to consumer and do more online sales so you can capture more profit, that might require a different strategy. And you might want to ask yourself how you feel about your current level of growth and your current profit margins, because all of these might change. All of these also might put you into a very different position in the industry, and it's not bad. People can change. I've actually watched it happen. The old advice when I first started in the industry more than 20 years ago is like, oh, if you started making in bronze or gold fill, you can't shift into solid gold and engagement or bridal or wedding. But you can. I've actually watched it happen so many times over the last 20 years that I don't actually consider that to be the greatest advice anymore. I used to hear, oh, if you're making things in silver, people won't take you seriously if you make work in platinum. But I've also found that that is no longer as true as it once was. Lots of designers have grown the breadth of what they offer in their jewelry, offering platinum alongside silver because they understand that that's two different customers who might be coming to them for the designs that they make and are less into which material it is or are very specific about which material it is, but they really like this particular design. So I've actually seen the industry grow in that way and expand in that way in a way that I think is actually very beneficial for consumers. So if we're talking about a pricing strategy for all of those, we might be talking about trying to find you a new target market. If you want to go from selling gold fill to selling solid gold, we might be talking about trying to find you a new position in the industry. And it's totally possible. It absolutely is. But your pricing might have to match and meet the expectations of the consumer at that level. And that's okay. Again, it's entirely possible. But now we're talking about all kinds of factors that go into your pricing that are far beyond a simple formula. And you might find that you will have different formulas for different items in your line. I cited the example earlier of a jeweler making custom platinum engagement rings with diamonds over a carat. Diamonds over a carat typically come with a very different pricing guideline than diamonds under half a carat or Melly diamonds. Those are very different pricing formulas and pricing strategies. And so if you're going from one to the other, you might find that you change your formula. And that's going to have to also grow alongside your business, is incorporating all of this new information so that you can make informed changes and still, again, very important, reach the customers who want what you do. And lastly, a lot of times a pricing strategy has to work alongside a roadmap for your business, a plan for your business, if you will, where you can look at your current customer base, see a customer base that you would like to access, and maybe you're going to have to change your marketing strategy. Maybe you're going to have to change who you target. Maybe if you're currently selling at wholesale and you want to sell it direct to consumer, maybe you're going to develop two different lines, one to be sold at wholesale, one to be sold at direct to consumer, which will need two different formulas and two different sets of messaging. Again, all of this is possible, but this would be incorporated into a full pricing strategy that, again, goes beyond just a formula or just a spreadsheet. Because, as I mentioned, a spreadsheet is not the same as a strategy. So, building a pricing strategy does take time. It also takes a certain amount of flexibility and adaptability. And that's because a pricing strategy, as of course we have seen over the last few years, the metals market has been going a little wild, right? And the pricing strategy that you had in place 2 years ago might not be the same pricing strategy that your business needs now to adapt, grow, and change and meet the needs of the current customer base that you have. So having a pricing strategy means that you'll need to understand that complex interplay of your branding, your positioning, the materials, the costs, and the consumer perception and what your audience needs. So when you're building a pricing strategy, do keep in mind that a lot of times this information can change, and it will be your job to stay adaptable and flexible to any of those changes that may come. So long as you keep all of these factors in mind, you'll always be able to build a pricing strategy that works for your business.